At Christmas, my mom pulled out our old photo albums for my fiancé to see. He went rigid, squeezed my hand and murmured, "Don't you notice it?" "Notice what?" I asked, confused. He pointed something out, and once I saw it, I couldn't look away. 5 hours later, I was on the phone with the police. I'd always thought that if something life-altering ever happened, something worth confiding in a therapist or featuring in a documentary, it would be scored by some dramatic music. You'd expect that deep hum, cinematic suspense, even a clap of thunder in the background. Instead, it was down to potato salad, overdone lamb, and my mom softly humming Mariah Carey while mechanically wiping the kitchen counter, as if she hadn't just turned nostalgia into a weapon for the 20th consecutive year. No booming sound, just the off-kilter aroma. Our home had every holiday lemony cleaner mixed with a hint of something charred. I had no expectations. I walked in just as I always did, smiling, trying to convince myself this wouldn't be another yearly reminder that I never quite fit. Lucas, my fiancé, remained his usual calm, observant self, the kind of man who could earn a living by simply noticing the small details. I brought him along, thinking he'd ground me. Turns out, I was mistaken. My sister Nina was there too, twirling her wine glass and decked out in beige, expensive attire. While her boyfriend nodded incessantly, my parents smiled, genuine enough on the surface. Dinner seemed routine but thick with tension beneath the polite veneer. The roast came out dry, the seasoning too sharp. My mom inquired about Na's new job. My dad grilled Lucas on computers like he'd never met a millennial before. No one ever really engaged with me, and that was normal. I used to resent being ignored. But now I just time how quickly they pretend I'm invisible. This year, it took 9 minutes. After dessert, my mom clapped her hands and announced, "I brought out the albums." As if it were a sudden surprise instead of something planned with military precision. She always had those albums at the ready, acting as if she'd stumbled upon them in the hallway closet beneath a pile of dish towels. And we all forced a smile, as if we hadn't seen those same stained pages 100 times before. Na leaned forward like a host at an awards show. Her boyfriend put on his most interested face, and Lucas sat quietly by my side. I found myself watching him more than the pages of pictures. The first album was filled with birthdays, beach trips, and awkward school photos. The next one showcased baby Nena, a radiant mom, and a proud dad. Then came the album of me. That's when Lucas changed. He didn't speak at first, but I saw the shift, the tension in his shoulders, the squint as he focused on one page after another, tilting his head just like when he adjusts a poorly cropped photo. He scanned, measured, and then, without meeting my eyes, he grabbed my hand under the table and whispered, "Don't you see it?" I blinked, startled. "See what? How can I not?" I asked, puzzled. He let go and casually resumed turning pages, nodding to my mom's reminiscing about how I once tried to feed a stray cat a pine cone. I sat immobilized, my ears ringing. I tried to mirror his steady composure and smile, but it felt as if my skin were wearing inside out. When I leaned in to ask again, he shook his head ever so slightly. "I'll explain later. Just go along with it." That phrase, so nonchalant, encapsulated the entire messy motto of my childhood. We left 20 minutes later. Lucas concocted an excuse, a too early flight or perhaps a delayed Zoom call. Mom fussed. Dad was indifferent, and Na barely looked up from her phone. I kissed everyone goodbye, plastering on an act of normalcy even though I was unraveling inside. In the car, Lucas reached into his coat and retrieved loose photos, little gems he must have pilfered from the pile beside the albums. I hadn't even noticed them before. "Look," he said. I did. The first photo was of me, wearing a pink coat, standing before a stone wall, a shot I'd seen before, haunting my memory like outdated wallpaper. "What's this?" I asked. "It's just a picture," he replied, then handed me to more. "Notice the same face," he remarked. "Same angle, the same smile, consistent shadows. Look closer." As I examined them, it hit me. There I was, an identical version of me duplicated in different settings, once in front of a fence, once by a swing set, once near a fountain. But no matter the background, the expression never altered. It was like they had copy-pasted my face. My voice came out strangely, as if from the back of my throat. Lucas simply nodded and then handed me another photograph, a baby with a pale complexion, lighter hair, and a distinctly different bone structure. "That's not you," he said quietly. "I doubt they ever had baby pictures of you." Finally, he gave me one more image, a family portrait with mom and dad in front of an old building. My outline was fuzzy, the shadows misaligned. I resembled a sticker that someone half removed from its backing. I stared at it for a long time, then let out a laugh, but it was hollow, the laugh that echoes when something shatters inside your head. "So you're a collage," I managed to say. "That's kind of interesting." Lucas offered no laugh in return. "Why fabricate these images?" I wondered aloud. He didn't immediately reply. Neither did I hadn't yet realized that 5 hours later, I'd be dialing 911. Denial doesn't shatter all at once. It trickles down like a worn-out pipe leaking behind the sink. Everyone pretends it isn't happening even though the drip is unmistakably there. I spent the entire night rereading those photos. Lucas eventually fell asleep beside me. But I stayed awake in bed, paralyzed like a child anticipating the arrival of monsters. Except these monsters already had names: Mom and Dad. The photos, like grim sentinels, lined my nightstand. And I kept checking them as if they would somehow mend themselves in my absence. They didn't. My face remained pasted, repeated, locked in an expression I couldn't recall ever making, and that baby still wasn't me. The lighting was always off. Then it hit me, not like a scream or a thunderbolt of revelation, but as a subtle murmur I could never forget. I had no idea where I came from, literally. I couldn't recall a single memory before the age of 5, when I was little. I assumed that was normal, maybe not ordinary, but at least understandable. My parents had told me it was due to the war. I'd been too young, they said, traumatized even, with my brain hoarding protective memories. They offered too many explanations, but what other alternative was there? Imagine telling your second-grade teacher that you skipped toddlerhood, that your earliest recollection was standing in a harsh, fluorescent hallway in a strange new country, while your mom urged you to smile at someone clutching a clipboard. Yes, that was my first true memory: the immigration office, the buzzing lights, the oppressive coldness of everything. I didn't yet speak English, but I understood the resolute look in my mom's eyes. Perform, it said, and then life settled into a series of ordinary events. We moved into a modest apartment. I started school, and my mom packed my lunch just as every other mom did, except she never left a little note, only meticulously folded napkins. My dad read the newspaper as if it were owed to him. They worked tirelessly to provide what I needed, but love, that was in short supply. When my sister-in-law was born 2 years later, the ambience of our home shifted overnight. Suddenly, baby photo albums, camcorder footage, and glittery scrapbooks became part of daily life. Birthday parties arrived with matching themes, spa days, and warm hugs. None of that warmth had ever been there for me. With me, it was always, you're strong, you're independent, you never needed much, which really was code for we never gave you much. I used to rationalize it as being the eldest, or that they were still figuring things out. But now I wasn't so sure. There were no aunts, uncles, or cousins, no visits from the old country. We never went back. My parents said they were alone now. War had scattered everyone. I once asked about family, and my dad mumbled that it was complicated, while my mom swiftly changed the subject. Then there was the Facebook message. When I was 15, I walked into the kitchen and saw Mom on the laptop, staring at an unread message in a language I didn't understand at the time: Serbian. A name I didn't recognize and a woman's identity laced with hearts. Mom's face went blank. Then she deleted the message, blocked the sender, and closed the laptop. When I asked who it was, she dismissed it as just spam. But spam doesn't send messages that make your hands tremble. I let it slide, as I always did. I was diagnosed with PTSD at 17. Nightmares, panic attacks, and a dull, ever-present dread, as if I were constantly on the verge of a door slamming shut that never really did. My therapist once inquired about the war, and I said I didn't remember. She replied that was likely why. Even though I now realize it wasn't the war one feared, it was her. I didn't grasp that immediately. The truth arrived gradually, like shards slowly accumulating. That night, as I sat at our kitchen table studying the photos Lucas had taken, one memory sparked to life in fleeting clarity: a vision of a woman, not my mom, not the one who raised me, but someone else with a gentle face and dark eyes, smelling faintly of citrus. I was holding her hand. Then another vision: a different woman with a soft voice and tender hands, and once more, I was holding it. Suddenly, the woman I'd known as Mom appeared, younger and beaming as if she'd just arrived. The first woman leaned in and said in Serbian, "This is your babysitter." I remembered that day clearly. That was the first time I'd met her. Shortly after came another flash, me tugging at my coat, crying out, "I want Mama," with a firm hand on my shoulder. The words, "Don't say that again. If you mention her, you vanish," echoing in my memory. I hadn't recalled those words until now, buried beneath decades of being told to smile for the camera. Then came the screaming. I was in an unfamiliar bed, legs kicking, chest aflame, calling desperately for her, both the citrus-scented woman and that other, colder voice. I can't say exactly how long the panic lasted, minutes or a lifetime. Lucas found me sprawled on the kitchen floor, gasping, my palms flat on the cold tiles as if grasping at anything to anchor me. When he reached out to touch me, I flinched. Instead, he knelt beside me silently, one hand resting on my back, trying to steady my ragged breaths. Amid the chaos, with my vision swaying, I managed to reach for my phone and dialed 911. The operator answered on the third ring with a measured, 911, what's your emergency? My chest was closing in, my mouth agape, yet no sound emerged. Until Lucas, still kneeling, steadied me with the warmth of his hand. Finally, I forced out, I've been kidnapped. There was a pause, a sharper moment, then the operator asked, ma'am, are you safe right now? I steadied myself enough to reply, I think so, I'm home. The person who abducted me isn't here anymore, it's from long ago, I just remembered. After another pause, her tone softened. Okay, take a breath, you're not in immediate danger, but it was all too real. I recalled details, falsified childhood photos, absent birth records, contradictions in my past. And that shock of a memory where I believed I'd been abducted around the age of 5. 25 years ago outside the US, the operator calmly informed US she'd log a welfare check and forward the case to the investigative unit, advising we call back immediately if we felt unsafe. Lucas thanked her and ended the call. I was still trembling as the reality of speaking my truth to someone real began to sink in. I couldn't sleep that night while Lucas made tea and hovered nearby like a sentinel. I showered, changed, and even did laundry I didn't recall putting in. I even emptied the dishwasher at one point. Lucas kept saying, you should rest. But I just nodded, expecting the door to burst open or the floor to collapse underneath me. Instead, the apartment remained ominously quiet, humming as if indifferent to my inner turmoil. The next morning, an email arrived. A case file had been opened, and an officer was assigned to contact us. I showed it to Lucas. He read it twice, then simply murmured, it's real now, real. It was as though reality hadn't been real. While I lay curled on the kitchen floor, wondering if I'd ever truly had a mother. 2 days later, a knock came, a measured, 3-tap rhythm that felt almost like a favor. I opened the door to see my mom, holding a brown paper bag as if delivering fresh cookies, and my dad standing a few steps behind, hands tucked in his coat pockets, his face unreadable. Can we come in? She asked, already stepping inside. Lucas appeared at my side and I let them in with a hesitant nod. They seated themselves on the couch like unexpected guests. My mom set the paper bag on the coffee table, and I retrieved some of that carrot soup you always liked, the same flavor from when you were sick. At 8, when mom had told you to stop crying because you weren't dying. That soup, thanks, I said flatly. She smoothed her coat and glanced around as if searching for the right words. While dad remained standing, finally, my mom said, we've spoken to the police. You did file a report, didn't you? She looked like she wanted to be indignant but didn't quite muster it. You should have come to us first. Would you have told me the truth? She asked, hesitating. Lucas chimed in, so, it's true, as my dad stepped forward, somber, yes. You're not biologically ours. I exhaled, not so much in relief as with the confirmation of something I'd long suspected. My mom nodded and explained. Your birth mother was very young. She couldn't take care of you and begged us to let you join our family. We were leaving while she stayed behind. It was wartime. So, where is she now? I asked. My mom clasped her hands together. We don't know. You never checked. My dad added, it was complicated. Lucas, arms crossed, pressed. Then why fake the photos? My dad didn't flinch as mom's voice wavered. We never wanted you to feel displaced. After you were taken from her, you cried for weeks. It was heartbreaking, but you adapted. We thought it was better this way. Lucas asked quietly, you erased your real life and created this one an elaborately edited backstory? Mom snapped. At 5 years old, you wouldn't have known any better. If you had told us, you'd have hated us. There was a moment of silence before I asked, evenly, then, tell me her name. Mom blinked as if confused and dad rubbed his face, weary with the burden of the truth. You were 5, remember? Your memories aren't reliable. Now, try me, she said. Then dad murmured a name as if confessing a secret, Mara Petrovic. No address, no further details, just a name. When I pressed for more, mom said, we lost contact. It was the war. And apparently the war had also scrubbed her information from Google searches that very night. Lucas and I began our own search. Lucas tapped away on his laptop while I struggled with my rusty Serbian good for chatting with elderly relatives about food, not for online sleuthing. Mara Petrovic turned out not to be an uncommon name. We hit several dead ends, a florist in Novi Sad, a retired gym teacher from Belgrade. Then I found a grainy Facebook profile, no smile, no filters, just a woman with dark hair pulled back, early 50s, faint lines around her eyes, and a look that made my stomach twist. Lucas leaned over, murmuring, she resembles you, but I shook my head slowly, insisting, no, I look like her. It wasn't just a resemblance, it felt disconcertingly exact, like a reflection you would only notice if someone pointed it out. The profile hadn't been updated in months, yet its about section listed a town in southern Serbia, the very one I'd overheard my mom mention when I was 10. And that was when my mom had slipped up. We sent a cautious message using Google Translate. It likely came off as robotic, but Lucas double-checked every word. I sat there, transfixed on the screen, waiting for a response. Finally, I typed, "Hello. I was given your name. I think I might be your daughter." The next morning, she replied with a single line, "Can we talk?" Lucas set up a video call. I don't remember agreeing. I was tucked under a blanket, teetering on the brink of meeting someone from a dream I never knew I'd had. And then her face filled the screen, older, tired, and yet unmistakably her, unmistakably me. She said nothing at first, simply staring, before her hand flew to her mouth as if to catch the words. "I wasn't sure, but now that I see you, I needed to tell you something," she finally managed. Her voice broke as she continued. "I've been searching for you for 25 years. Your name wasn't Isabel back then, it was Melina." I froze. Melina, it felt both foreign and strangely familiar. Like an old pair of shoes long forgotten but still fitting perfectly. I blinked, struggling to remain composed, and asked, "Did you give me up?" Her face collapsed in a quiet, heartbreaking way. "No," she whispered. "God, no. I had to leave you with someone I trusted, a neighbor, a friend, for a couple of hours while I dashed to the municipal office to finalize some papers. When I returned, you were gone." She took a shaky breath. "They told me your babysitter had taken you, but you never came home." Her voice cracked. I listened, suspended in silence, as she recounted the nightmarish sequence of searching, visiting every police station, camp, and shelter, with everyone insisting that children get lost during war. Yet she knew you couldn't simply vanish. Lucas then asked softly, "Did you ever apply to leave?" She nodded. "I was approved for a resettlement program for U.S. families with children. Everything was set until after you disappeared. They took me off the list. I couldn't leave without you." That crushing realization hit me. Why did they take me? Why were those photos altered so meticulously, as if I were a final puzzle piece, not out of love, but because I was meant to get them out? We sat in heavy silence afterward. Her eyes were red, and mine probably too. Lucas stayed silent, simply sitting beside me as if holding the room's edges together. "I never knew where you went," she murmured. "I thought maybe you were taken over the border. Or maybe you died." I could only whisper, "They changed my name." "Isabel," she replied, as if the word itself was painful. "Melina was your grandmother's name." I wasn't sure how to react, anger, relief, or just emptiness. As if someone had polished out every detail of me, leaving only a hollow shell behind. 2 weeks later, we found ourselves standing side by side at the police precinct. She wore a navy coat. I clutched the altered photos tightly. The officer collected our statements and asked questions that blurred together in my memory. My mom, my adoptive mom, unfolded a crinkled flyer from her purse, the original missing persons notice with my name displayed beneath a grainy photo. Melina Petrovic, age 5. Last seen wearing a red scarf. "This is my daughter," she declared to the officer, and for the first time, someone else affirmed it. Charges were pressed, and I stopped pretending that the pass-along Fawade belonged only to me. It didn't go to trial. During the investigation, they were found guilty of immigration fraud, falsifying federal documents, and hiding an international child abduction. Apparently, they'd never surrendered their Serbian passports. They merely tucked them away in a drawer next to their moral compass. Their American citizenship was revoked, and they were deported within 6 months. No appeals, no second chances, and a permanent ban on return. Na stayed. Of course, she did. Since she was born here. At first, she was mostly silent, staring at the floor. Then one day, she came over and said, "That was really messed up." It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was something. Now we talk far more than we ever did as kids. She may not be my sister by blood, but she still knows exactly how I take my coffee, and that, to me, counts for something. As for me, my biological mother, she moved to the U.S. 6 months after everything settled. Through a family reunification program, Lucas and I helped with the paperwork. She ended up working at a bakery just a stone's throw from our apartment, saying it reminded her of the bakery where she worked when she was 21 before it all went wrong. We even planned her spot on the wedding guest list. She cried when she received the invitation. The people who raised me lost nearly everything, and frankly, they'd built their lives on a lie. So when it all crumbled, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know what you think in the comments.